What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, and today I am honored to be joined by a Dodgers legend, 1981 World Series champion and World Series MVP, Ron Cey, who's got a new book out, Penguin Power. Ron, thanks so much for joining us. How's the end of summer, early fall treating you?
Well, Jeff, thanks for having me. It is kind of winding down, but of course, in Southern California and with the climate change, who knows what kind of weather we're going to be getting because it just rained here a couple of days here this last week, and it usually doesn't do that in August and September.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is you and I were actually supposed to connect a couple weeks ago. We had something tentatively planned, and it turned out that you were in Maui right when the fires broke out. I heard there's
Yeah.
sort of a story behind how that all played out for you. So tell me a little bit about that experience.
Well, actually, we had a family trip planned for quite some time. We have a timeshare that we had in some of a couple of the resort places in Canapali, and we've been going there for close to 50 years now, I guess. And it was pretty much a planned event, and I devoted this entire trip, or excuse me, podcast that I'm doing to the event, and it is the first apocalyptic event that I've encountered in my life, and we actually had some high winds that were predicted to come in and create some havoc after the first couple of days of our vacation, and I was scheduled to have 1 week with half of my family and the other with the other half of my family. And so we were going to be there for a while. We encountered the winds. We were actually in Lahaina the night
Crazy.
before the tragic event. And if we had been in the area the next night, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Crazy.
And so we feel extremely lucky to be not involved in that. But I'll try to get through this as quickly as I can. But the power was knocked out before the fire. We were without fire for about 3 days, power for 3 days. Uh, the uh, the 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 loss of power came in the AM, so it was probably 2 a.m. The fire that eventually took down Lahaina started in the early afternoon of the next day. So within 12 hours of losing power, we were now stuck
Crazy.
in Kanapali, and we had no way out. For 3 days, we had no power, no communication with our phone, no emailing, text, or receiving phone calls or calling out. So we were in the blind. And that late that afternoon of the day that the fire took out Lahaina, um, we had no real information other than there was a fire going on. And
Crazy.
later on, when we saw the huge black plumes of smoke in the sky, kind of rolling higher and higher. We knew that there was something serious going on there, but we had no idea to the extent of which there was
Yeah.
absolutely zero communication. The sirens, the 80 sirens they had on the island, did not go off.
Wow.
The water was rationed, I'm told, for those who were trying to fight their fires with their water hoses, the people in their homes before it spread down the hill and into the city of Lahaina. And you have to remember now that the city of Lahaina was the cultural center and the entertainment center of the island, and it was
Right.
actually the capital of the Hawaiian Islands way back when. So
Crazy.
this was a major, major loss, and my heart goes out to all those people simply because there's absolutely no way to understand the devastation that we saw.
Yeah.
And when we were finally allowed to leave after we were stuck, and I had to wait in line for food at a place that we found that was open because they were operating on generators for 2 hours before I was only able to get some drinks. And so we were running into a very difficult situation within 5 miles away from this disaster area of our own. We're
Crazy.
isolated, can't get in, can't get out, everything's shut down. We got lots of kids around. It's creating a major problem. It was fortunate that they got things at least under control, that we were allowed then to bypass Lahaina and get to the other side, the YLA side and the airport side.
Okay.
And it was not until we reached the city of Lahaina that we saw the war zone.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, we saw the scorched cars. We saw everything burnt to the ground. It is not something that you ever want to see, and I hope that I never see it again. But it was devastating. It still is devastating.
Yeah.
When you see the pictures of the people the only way that you can escape now, you have to understand, is you had to go into the water.
Yeah.
When you have this wall of flame and you're flanked both by, you can't go that way, you can't go this way. I can't even think of the horror that may have gone on with people that had to hopefully get into the water and
Yeah.
and at least get far enough away, because the winds were so high you could actually see the embers flying out
Crazy.
across Front Street, which is the main drag there in Lahaina. And for those I mean, people were cremated in their cars, and I'm sorry that I had to say that. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's just that what I saw was so graphic and so unbelievable that they declared a disaster area, but I don't see Lahaina recovering anytime too soon. And then, of course, you got these land grabbers out there who are trying to buy the property from the people. I don't know how that's all going to work out. You're going to have a lot of lawsuits.
Yeah.
It was just absolutely horrible.
Yeah, it's a tragic thing, and again, like you said, fortunate that for the folks that did get out, and the just the chaos surrounding it. So I'm grateful that you were able to get back to your home and able to be with us today. And again, like you mentioned, you've got a podcast, so if people want to check out more of kind of your story, what's the name of the podcast, real quick,
It's
Ron?
called We'll See About That. We operate out of CRN Talk Radio. It's
Okay,
in Chatsworth. We're also on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Roku. We're out there. Please join us. We are live 11 a.m. on Saturdays.
cool,
And of course, the book, Penguin Power, is available on Amazon. And if I could ever get my website up, we're going to offer the book on that as well.
love
And
it.
it's to be coming soon, I'm hopeful.
Yeah, well, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the picture of the book, Ron Cey, Penguin Power, written with Ken Gurnick and the foreword by Peter O'Malley, Dodger Blue, Hollywood Lights, and my 1 in a million big league journey. I have tons of stories, Ron, that I want to ask you about. But first, I want to ask you just briefly about the Dodgers currently and what we're seeing with this team, because I actually, as I was researching your career and some of the things that you navigated, moments that you were a part of, months that you had, I see a number of parallels between those things and what the Dodgers are actually currently going through. Right now, the Dodgers are in the midst of a crazy run, 3 World Series in basically the past 6 or 7 years, a World Series title. Your career, you are part of a Dodgers team that made 4 World Series appearances in an 8-year stretch, won one of those, again, 1981. I'm curious if you could take us into the clubhouse as much as possible of this current Dodgers team. Like, what does it feel like to be on a team that has had the run of success that this team has had, and that, quite frankly, maybe hasn't achieved as much World Series success as people on the outside or even on the inside probably would hope. What are guys thinking about with about 35 games left in the season, a month to go, and basically a World Series or bust mentality?
Um, it's just a great situation to be in.
Yeah,
You're coming from an organization that is rich in history and tradition.
Yep.
That started back, if you want to do your history, back in the 1940s in Brooklyn, continued into the 50s, and when they came west in 58, they won in 59, and there were three more World Series appearances in the 60s, three in the 70s, two in the 80s, and then we went dark for about
Yep.
30 years. And it's a Dodger mentality. It doesn't exist every place in baseball. Our main goal was hammered into us very early. If you had ever been in Vero Beach and walked the halls of Vero Beach, where all the history and tradition is, you would see subliminally messages of here are our teams who've been world champions, here are our players who are in Hall of Famers, and the team's greatest lineups and everything else. And you want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
I certainly wanted to be, the that guy. I wanted our teams to be those teams. We wanted to, carve out our own history and tradition within it.
Yeah.
And we were able to do that. And, our goal every year wasn't just to, improve on our record or be
Yeah.
a contender. We were, our goals are set to, we're going to the World Series. I don't know where you guys are going, but we're going to the World Series.
Yeah.
And guess what? A lot of that worked out. We didn't always win, but we were there.
Yeah.
And 1978 was the biggest heartbreak. That interference call with Reggie Jackson in Game 4 of the 1978 World Series was the one that changed the entire complexion of that series, and that was a series that we should have won if
Yeah.
you had seen the play and it had been reviewed under the uh, the way that we play baseball today. Then that call would have been reversed, and I think we would have comfortably gone ahead 3-1 and probably finished it quite easily after that. But it didn't happen that way,
Yeah.
and they threw a big monkey wrench in there, so that hurt badly. But yeah, our expectations are always that high, and when you listen to other players about how they approach the season, you listen to it in spring training, you you hear them talk during the season. Our mentality level was set higher.
Yeah.
They said, "Well, we hope we can be a contender this year. Maybe we can be a 500 team. You guys aren't going to beat us. You're not going to beat us. Not with that mentality."
Yeah.
We always had a big blue bullseye in the middle of our forehead for many reasons.
Yeah.
The way we traveled, we had the KO2 plane, which was the only team back then that had a plane. That nobody had charters back then. It was all commercial. So yeah, there were a lot of guys who wanted to be a Dodger just to fly on that airplane
Love it.
and live in our history and tradition. So you might call it elitist, but it was just a matter of, hey, this is what we have. And I got to tell you, it was an advantage because when we would play a Sunday day game at Dodger Stadium, now we've got to fly to New York or Montreal, and the game is over with. When we get to gate 48 at American Airlines and we're ready to go, we're leaving.
Yeah.
It's not a 9 o'clock scheduled departure like some of those commercial flights for those
Yes.
other guys. So, yeah, I could see that, and I could see that. That's another reason why I want to beat these guys. But it was all. I think we were privileged. Okay, to be able to have our own plane, to have this history and tradition that we were asked to live up to in a way that was comfortable and
Yeah.
not pushed. And we all took it in stride. We knew it was expected, and I think the biggest part for us that became a reality is that we got to carve our own history and tradition within our period of time there. And you're looking at, four Series, a World Championship. We had all kinds of Cy Young Award winners, all-star caliber players. Every member of the infield was a multiple-time all-star. We had the first 30 home run foursome in Major League history. We had the first. We were the first team in Major League history to draw 3 million at the gate. So they do live in our house that we built, and that's a fact. And the infield that was together for 8.5 years is not only the longest running, but it's the most successful infield in Major League history. And I won't go as far to say it's the greatest infield of all time, but by fact, it is the most successful.
And I
So
want to, there's
go
all
ahead.
sorts of nuggets that you just mentioned that I want to ask you about and get to.
Sure.
Let me start with the Reggie Jackson thing. I talked
Yeah.
to my dad before this, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to chat with Ron Cey. You know, what should I ask him about?" Um, and the Reggie Jackson play was actually the first thing he mentioned. And so you actually became a teammate with Reggie Jackson at the end of your
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
How
Well,
how, how many? What's that?
I had, I had known Reggie for a long time.
Okay,
I lived in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he went to ASU, and we used to work out over there before we go to spring training, and so I had a relationship with him before. All good. Reggie and I.
did he admit to some foul play there?
He kind of looks at it as like his hip kind of just accidentally got in the way, you know. And
I don't take it that you're buying that.
no, I said, well, it's nice to hear your version, but his performance in Game 6 of 1977 is historic, and it solidified his nickname of Mr. October. That hurt. That hurt. But his hip accidentally getting in the way and ruining an opportunity for us to win a World Series in
Yeah,
1978 hurt a lot worse than that.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm not in love with Reggie's hip. Not at all. Not at all.
Well, one other thing I wanted to ask you about as it related to your career and a parallel that I see is as we record this, Mookie Betts just recorded one of the best months that I can remember ever seeing from an offensive player. 11 home runs, an OPS of 1355, which is a ridiculous number. As I dig into that, and I'm sure you know, that's not the greatest month that a Dodger has ever had. That's because you had the greatest month in Dodgers history. You had an OPS of 1433. You reached base 54% of the time. You had 9 home runs in a month. And I'm just curious, what's it like to be a baseball player when you walk up to the plate and you are firing on all cylinders? I mean, does the baseball somebody asked Mookie Betts, does the baseball look bigger? Do things slow down? What's it like to be in a groove like you and Mookie Betts got to experience?
Well, first of all, I want to your numbers are correct, but I want to go a little bit further. We only played 20 games in April
Yeah.
that year, and they played 30 games in this last month. So I did that damage in 20 games, 9 home runs in 20 games. I also set a major league record for runs batted in. I had 29 runs batted in 20 games.
Crazy.
Uh, and the only reason that record has been broken is because you are playing 30 games.
Yeah.
So if I had had 10 more games, it actually, if you just say, could I continue at the same pace, it would have been a 44 RBI month. 44.
Crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. But as far as getting back to where you are, you're just in a zone. There's no clutter. It's tunnel vision. There's nothing that's distracting you. You see everything pure and clean. You know that anything these guys are going to throw up there, it doesn't matter, slider, curveball, changeup, fastball, cutter, you're on it and you're
Yeah.
hammering it, and there's really no explanation for it. And I think that you start to say, I am absolutely rocking this place, and at some point in time you have to come down.
Yeah.
And I think that I started to, in the end, I started to kind of talk myself down on it, and I think that's one of the reasons why I probably lost a bit of an edge. If I could have just gone in there and just continued having this tunnel vision, I would have been a lot better off. But I had so many people, reporters around saying, what's going on? How are you doing this? I didn't want to think how I was doing
Right.
it, I just wanted to leave it alone.
Yeah.
And it's almost like saying, well, the bat's hitting the ball and it's going the right place.
Yeah.
And you don't want to think about it because you can get into a place where you start, second guessing yourself, just like you do when you go south for a while. You go for
Yeah.
15 or something, you strike out 6 or 7 times. Today's game, probably 12 or 13.
Yeah.
But you start second guessing yourself, and you start swinging at pitches that are out of the zone, and you start taking pitches that are strike you should be hammering, and everything just seems to go south, and you start second guessing yourself. And this is the part about metrics that I don't like today, is that you have so much more information available to you that I think if you start to analyze this, it's paralysis by analysis. And
Yeah.
so I don't. I like to be simple about it, understand the basics here, and then go after it, because you can talk yourself into some crazy things.
Well, what's interesting to hear you say that about metrics is, as I was doing research, a lot of people have said that had these metrics been around when you were in the league, that your career might be remembered in a even more positive light, because some of those metrics that we have today and that we appreciate and acknowledge today were higher on you than maybe even some of the metrics that were around in the 70s and 80s when you were playing.
I was told when these metrics first came out by one of our coaches who was on the staff with Don Mattingly, Tim Wallach, a terrific third baseman in its own right in his career. And when I was working there, I used to ask him. I said, "So how are these metrics, going? How do you guys like these things?" And he says, "Well, he says it's really kind of interesting. They're not mandatory as they are now,
Yeah.
but he says it's getting there. But he said you're not going to believe some of the stuff that we're finding out." He says you're a more valuable player in today's game than you were in your own because of this metrics.
Yeah.
And what I was able to find out is that not only am I the highest ranked LA Dodger infielder of all time, I also was the number one ranked player on our club for 6 of the 10 years that I was there.
And this is
Second,
according to wins above replacement, I believe. Is that right?
absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yes. You now have a permanent identity with WAR today, because
Yeah.
it's also part of the basic agreement for payment. I think it's in Rule 5. Not exactly sure, but ballpark figure. But in the years that I was not ranked number one, those players were Willie Crawford, Jimmy Wynn, Reggie Smith, and Pedro Guerrero. And so, how is it that, I got not even a smell of potentially being elected into the Hall of Fame, and I have interchangeable statistics with Hall of Famer Ron Santo, and he got a lot of attention, and of course he got voted into the Hall of Fame posthumously. But they have this Veterans Committee now, and I would be curious if someone could possibly explain how I got completely eliminated from even consideration. And it
Yeah.
was embarrassing to me. It really was. But to be the number one ranked player on your team that won World Series, and we're in the World Series 4 times, that's it. That's all you can tell me. And to be honest, the Dodgers haven't honored me yet either.
Yeah. Well,
How's that?
I was gonna
How's
ask, I
that?
mean, based on everything you just said, you have a guy like Scott Rowland who gets elected into the Hall of Fame, who's a third baseman. Um, you've got guys, the Dodgers sort of opening up the retirement of numbers to Fernando, who is not in the Hall of Fame. And obviously Fernando, there's a whole host of reasons why he would be honored beyond just the contributions on the field. But I mean, as those things start to happen, it does sound like there's a little piece of you that, you said it was embarrassing to I think it was the first vote, right? You didn't get enough votes in the first round of the Hall of Fame. So now,
That's correct.
fast forward, Scott Rowland gets in, the Dodgers are retiring jerseys. Like, how do you process all that?
I don't. You'd have to ask them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beyond me. I don't have an answer to that. Maybe they can clarify why I'm not in there.
Well, and you had a quote in your book, and this was maybe my favorite quote in the book, and I'm curious sort of the heart behind this. So you said, quote, "I'm not a Hall of Fame player. I'm not in the 1%. I'm in the 2%, and I don't feel bad about that."
Yes, that is basically based on things that are not metric.
Okay.
Okay. When I was playing the game, there were certain prerequisites that we understood without verification. Uh, you hit 500 home runs, you're going to get in. You
Yep.
have a lifetime batting average of 300, you're probably going to get in. You have 3,000 hits, you're going to get in. You have 300 wins as a pitcher, you're going to get in. Okay, those are the peaks of which there's a lot of gray area of what's in between. You've seen your last 300 win pitcher in Major League history, I believe, because of the way they do things today.
Yeah.
You would probably be lucky to see a guy that gets to 250 in the future. Kershaw is I think just a little bit over 200 wins now,
Yeah.
something like
Verlander's
that.
Verlander's the active leader. He's at 254 wins.
254. There you go. So as you can see, there's not enough time for those guys to get to 300.
Yeah.
And if you want to go back to Fernando won how many games? 130 something.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, there's really no case for Fernando. All due respect. Koufax had a 10-year period, I think, that he pitched, and he retired at 29 or 30 because of his arm, and he fell short of the 300 wins. There was
Yep.
no, but his 5-year career there was like no one else's. I think the only one that you can even consider was Greg Maddox's 5-year run that he had, where he was just all universe. Uh, you have to have longevity in this game, and you have to put up numbers. And even sometimes when you get to having a lot of numbers, I remember someone when Jim Tomei was hit his 600 home run. I
Yeah.
heard some people say, "Well, I don't know if he's qualified yet to get into the Hall of Fame." 600 home runs? Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? What else do you have to do? How many guys have ever done that?
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, there's I don't know who these people are that are voting these days, but I'm pretty sure that most of these people that are voting never saw us play and don't know too much about it.
Yeah. You've got a couple visitors, I think, in your room.
I
Little
have
munchkins
out
running
there.
around.
I have my grandson, who was also on the Maui trip, has just stopped in to say hello.
Love it. I
We're
love
on
it.
a podcast. Did you know that, Mr. Man? Huh?
You're
Talking
gonna
to
be
the
on the internet, not on TV quite yet, but on the internet. And real quick, just
yeah,
the Fernando, I want to 170 wins, which I mean does
70.
not
Okay.
it's still
Yeah, look, I understand. Fernando had a terrific career here. He was very successful in Dodger history and tradition. Could you guys not bother us for a couple minutes?
He's just
And
crazy.
but when you look at the overall thing, there was Fernando mania, but in all due respect to the other players who came before us, uh, and while we were here, we set the attendance record before Fernando got here.
yeah.
Okay, so I have to give credit to the guys that I played with and the organization. You guys are killing me with this, but we accomplished a great deal in our period, and I think the guys that were the nucleus of those teams back then for that 10-year period deserve a lot of credit, and I don't think we get very much of it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. I'll let you clear out your room a little bit so I can get a couple more questions and then we'll be done.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, Perfect. I want to get to a couple stories, things that you got to experience as a major league player. You kind of referenced some of this stuff in the book, I know, and just it's interesting to me to go back and realize that you were on the field for some of the more iconic moments in in baseball
Yes.
history, not just franchise history. Um,
Yes.
let's start with this one. One of the most famous moments in baseball history. Hank Aaron hits the record-setting home run. You're at third base. There's a couple funny things here. First is that two of your teammates, second baseman and shortstop, shake Henry Aaron's hand as he's coming around. You don't get the chance because you've got two fans on the field hugging him by the time he gets to you. I'd love to just hear kind of what that moment was like.
Oh yeah, well, it was great actually. We started the season, I think, very very strong, and we were going. Juju, I have to finish this, please. Get lost. Uh, uh, and Henry opened the season, I think, in Cincinnati, and he hit a home run in Cincinnati. And then they were going directly home to Atlanta for, I guess, 10-day, 2-week road homestand. And so he sat out the second game or the third game, whatever it was, in Cincinnati, and he said that he had wanted to break the record in Atlanta in front of the home folk crowd. And so we're saying, great, we're going in there right away, and we got a 3-game series, and hey, we want to win, but I'm pulling for Henry to break the record against us. I want to be a part of this. So sure enough, we go in there, and we don't play so well the first game, and Henry hits a home run off Al Downing. I guess it's in the 5th inning or something like that. And Henry's coming around second base after Davey and Billy had shaken his hand, and he's got these two kids that he's trying to fight off that got onto the field. And so I'm in between, I'm saying, well, I really do want to shake his hand, but I also want it to be his moment. And these kids have kind of messed up the whole deal, so I guess I should just let it pass. And I did. And so after Henry, touches third base and goes towards home plate, I think Joe Ferguson, our catcher, met him halfway, and then he steps on home plate and they have a celebration. And then the game would stop for, I think, about 30 minutes to make the presentation. And this is the most historical game I'm ever going to play in my career,
Yeah.
as it turns out. And it was thrilling. And it was absolutely awesome. And we were fortunate to have the Braves come into Dodger Stadium, I think, on their next road trip. And I took 2 posters and 2 baseballs over to the visiting clubhouse, and I had Henry sign these for me. And I sat in his locker for a couple minutes before he came in, and I see him coming in, and I said, Henry, I said, I'm not leaving until you sign these balls and posters. And he just starts laughing. And he says, no problem. I said, I would have shaken your hand last week or whatever it was, but I said, now I have a chance to do this. And it was just a great feeling. And actually, I still have one of the posters here, and
Love
I
it.
have the 2 balls that he signed still. So what an incredible moment for baseball. What an incredible moment for our Dodger players who got to be a part of this once in a lifetime kind of thing. It was this is the part that kind of separates the game from the business, and we're thrilled. And we lost this game, but uh, we ended up going to the World Series that year.
I'm curious, just briefly, what are you thinking when the two fans run on the field and they're coming right to you? I mean, it was a
Yeah,
different time and a different era, so I
yeah,
feel like it'd be different than if that happened in 2023. But it's just a bizarre moment that I've always wondered.
it destroyed the moment. It really did. I mean, I can, and Henry, I think when he was coming around, they're kind of pulling on him a little bit.
Yeah,
So I think he's kind of getting a little irritated. And he's trying to, just get him off him.
yeah.
And eventually it happened. But yeah, it was Henry's moment. Um, and the fact that Henry was as great a guy that he was, with all the death threats that he was threatened with during the time that he was chasing the record, and to live through a lot of the black player stories about what it was like back then,
Yeah.
all the racial prejudice and everything that was going on. So it was a great thrill not only to be in that game, but to uh, associated with Henry Aaron in any form.
Yeah. Another moment that you were more at the center of than this one. was the 1981 World Series, Game 5. Um, Jeff Pearlman called it the most terrifying moment in World Series history. You get a 95-mile-an-hour fastball that hits you in the helmet. You end up in the hospital. You get it diagnosed with a concussion. 2 days later, you're in Game 6. You go 2 for 3 with an RBI. How in the world is that possible? You had to leave that game early, by the way. So it's not like, miraculously everything was fine. 6th inning, you leave because you were dizzy. How do you go 2 for 3 with a single and a double 2 days after taking 95 to the head?
Well, they didn't have any concussion protocols back then, and
No
they
kidding.
actually left the decision up to me. So once that was established, then I'm playing.
Yeah.
And I showed up in New York late. The team had already left. I had to stick around, go through some more tests the next day. I had to go through a test of my own by getting to the ballpark and going through some workouts to see if I would get dizzy and how it would affect me. And I was passing those things. Um, and Lasorda had showed me the lineup, and he left the fourth spot open, and he kept reminding me that this is where you're hitting if you're playing. And he followed me along around the clubhouse and on the field like my a shadow dog. How you feeling? How you feeling? How you feeling now? What does it feel like? I said, look, I haven't even taken batting practice yet, and I got to wear a new helmet, which is going to be interesting to see how that's going to feel. And so I was trying to get used to, but you know what? It really kind of took any tension or anything away from, the moment. So it allowed me to be rather calm. And so I took batting practice. We had a horde of reporters in the visiting clubhouse at Yankee Stadium, and I popped my head through the one of the two doors and looked at Lasorda and gave him the thumbs up, and he takes the lineup up, puts my name in it in front of all these guys, and so we're ready to go. And the good part is that we got off to a good start. I got off to a good start. Got a base hit my first time up, a line drive to left field off Tommy John, and I think it was my third time up. I got a fortunate base hit up the middle, and it drove in the run that was actually the game winner, and we broke the game open in that inning. And during that inning, Dusty Baker had hit a little um, a single into right center field that I went first, third on, and that's when I got dizzy.
Got it.
And Guerrero, I think, tripled to the gap after that. That's when we were breaking it open. And then when I played defense the next half inning, I got a little humpback liner hit to me that looked like a fuzzy tennis ball.
Jeez.
And so I said, you know what? I'm not right. And so I went to Lasorda and I said, you're going to have to take me out. I don't want to have any issues take place on my watch. I don't want to be responsible for messing this up. So he inserted Daryl Thomas into my position, and we coasted the rest of the way. And the last out was a fly ball to Kenny Landreau in center field. And next thing you know, we're bringing the World Championship trophy back to Los Angeles.
I love it. I love it. 2 more questions, then I'll let you
Yeah,
go. I wanna ask about the infield. You mentioned it.
yeah.
Part of a group that played together for 8.5 seasons. We're talking about numbers that nobody's ever gonna get to, 300 wins. I mean, 8.5 years for an infield, 4 guys to play together is a number that in 2023 will never be matched. I don't know if it's because of egos. I don't know if it's because of contract stuff. I'm curious looking back, how did you guys make it work? Like, was it just a unique group of people? Was there a higher tolerance for just sort of being a team first guy and letting all the other drama kind of fade away? Like, how do 4 guys like that last together for so long?
Well, there's plenty of examples. I mean, it's kind of a miracle,
Yeah,
honest with you. But we all grew up in the Dodger organization. We were all within a few years of each other age-wise. We were individually successful. Our teams were successful. We were incredibly durable. If you look at the games played by each individual, you will see that the entire infield was playing 150 games a year. We don't have one player that plays 150 games anymore.
Yeah.
It's just not designed that way. The durability, we were the nucleus of the Dodger club for that period of time, and I think we gave our managers, Walter Alston, Hall of Famer, Tom Lasorda, Hall of Famer, uh, a lot of comfort knowing that, he's got this continuity and this
Yeah.
unity and this camaraderie between the four players that really makes this thing rather special. So we were extremely fortunate. We ruined the Dodger farm system for the whole decade. Every every young player that was coming up that was an infielder had to go to a different organization to find their way, and they did, and there were plenty of them. But it was an incredibly special time. Um, and yes, it will. That is a record. And it's not to say that there couldn't be four individuals who could do that. It's just that the system, the process that is in place today, makes it impossible.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, last question. One of the things that was interesting coming out of COVID and sort of having this break is that all sorts of people started talking about the best Dodger first baseman, second baseman, third baseman, shortstop ever. Ken Gernick, who you wrote this book with, posted a poll on Twitter. 2,000 folks were asked who the Dodgers' greatest third baseman ever was. Have you seen the results of this poll? I'm just curious.
Well, I have not seen it, no, but I mean, I am the only choice, not from an ego standpoint, but from just the fact that I'm the highest ranked LA Dodger infielder all time means I have to be number one. So go ahead and tell me what
So
the result
you
was.
did win. You did win.
Uh,
You got
uh,
39% of the vote,
uh,
6.5% more than Justin Turner,
uh,
13% more than Adrian Beltre.
uh,
And to your point, I mean, you did finish first, and
yeah,
obviously the number of people that are on Twitter and answering this is probably, a majority of people that maybe didn't see you play and are
of
far
course,
more recency bias familiar with Justin Turner,
of
Beltre,
course.
who was in LA for 7 years, but maybe like on the totality of his career. Um, so it's an interesting because you've got you who, to your point, you have 49.9 wins above replacement. That's 16 more wins above replacement than Justin Turner had as a Dodger, and it's double what Adrian Beltre did as a Dodger. So you've got you, then you've got Justin Turner, who's sort of the face of the franchise to some degree, alongside Clayton Kershaw recently, and then Beltre, who had 7 years in LA, but then went on to have a career that could end up being a Hall of Fame career. So I'm
I
just
believe it
curious.
will.
So I'm just curious for you. Like, it sounds like I don't know. Like, I mean, you're a guy who played 40 plus years ago. Like, I'm just curious. Does it bother you that it's only 39% that say you were first, or is it kind of like, hey, it's 2023. I've got bigger things to think about.
Uh, Look, I am still number one. Times will change. It's just like Zach Wheat. Zach Wheat is has a position on the Dodgers all-time team as an outfielder. He played 100 years ago.
Yeah,
That's probably not going to change. If you're doing this realistically, I understand that not too many people recall Zach Wheat, but
yeah,
his record speaks for itself. Just like Duke Snyder, just like Koufax, just like Drysdale, just like the rest of them, just like Gil Hodges. If you had an all-time infield of Dodgers all-time infield, it would be Campanella, Hodges, Robinson, Reese, myself. And if you had the LA version of the Dodgers all time team, it would be Piazza, Garvey, Lopes, Wills, myself. I'm the only one who represents both. And that's just the history of it. If you're crunching the numbers, I realize now that, listen, I'm 75 years old. My fan base is probably in the 40 to 45 range. So any of the kids and some of the young adults, 20s and 30s, haven't experienced,
yeah.
what we did. And so, yeah, we're an afterthought. So it is more about, the today's players. and what they do while they're there. And remember, this is while you're there. It's not
Right.
what you do when you're in Boston or Texas, like Beltray. This is your time during, your Dodger stance. And I am a firm believer that Adrian Beltre, when he is eligible, will be eventually in the Hall of Fame. I think he's probably got a real good shot his first time in, but it
Yeah.
depends on who the other players who are also going in at the same time. But I have told him, I said, where I've asked him, I said, where do you think you're going to hang your hat once you get elected into the Hall of Fame? And of course, he was, blushing and a little embarrassed and whatever else. But he said, if I had a choice, he said, it'd probably be the Texas Rangers. So I
Yeah.
think that's where he probably had his most success. There was a case when Dave Winfield got elected into the Hall of Fame. Story has it that San Diego handed out a paycheck, and it made it easy for him to choose San Diego. So I don't think they do things like that anymore. I think it's where you've had your greatest success.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing that list and wondering where a guy like Freddie Freeman might end up as far as all time. To your point, it's a 6-year contract. He's had a number of
Yeah,
great years before
yeah.
he was with Atlanta, but I mean, right now he's in the midst of an incredible season. And so obviously we're talking infield. Mookie Betts will be here for 10 or 12 years, and the run that he's on is an all timer. So it's just interesting to think
Yeah.
about where the team we're watching may stack up
I
historically.
think I think that depending well, certainly Mookie with the length of his
Yeah.
contract, with the kind of player that he is, he will probably climb into that all
Yeah.
time group. Uh, uh, Freeman will have a little bit more difficulty because if he displays a period of time that he's here, then he's probably not going to rack up enough points on any way that you slice it
Yeah.
to be considered number one. But he and Mookie are the 1-2 guys, and you can flip them. Your next contributor is probably Smith and Muncy,
Yeah.
and I still have a hard time trying to understand Max Muncy only hitting 200. I did not understand that at all. He hits home runs, he drives in runs, but to hit 200 and be below 200, I don't know how you do that. I
Yeah.
just really don't know how you do it.
It's a different game. It's amazing how that has changed. And, if you can hit home runs and walk a lot, then batting average and pitcher wins, I would say, are the two statistics that over the last 10, 15, 20 years have become the most, I would say, devalued. And I think pitcher wins, there's a case to be made just because of how maybe little influence a pitcher has over that particular stat, how dependent that is on 8 other guys, 9 other guys. um, I think batting average, I think we're probably on an upswing where people are saying, hey, maybe that matters a little bit, but we'll see.
Well, if you really take a good look at it, it is a strikeout home run game today.
Yeah.
And with the new rules they've inserted, they've actually invited a little bit of old school baseball, which means base stealing back into the game.
Yeah.
Base stealing has been down for years. Batting average is at the lowest that it's been in Major League history. It's in the 240s.
Yeah.
Okay, hitting with two strikes. You're not gonna understand very well how people only have the Major League average with hitting with two strikes in any count is 160. 160. There's
Yeah.
only a few guys in baseball that hit with two strikes that have a batting average of over 200. And last year, I believe it was Trey Turner. And now, of course, he's carrying on his career with the Phillies. But um, the clock pitch uh, thing I like because it keeps the intensity in the infield, which is where 70% of the action of the game takes place. Keeps those guys focused and alert. The one that I dislike the most, I think, is the runner at second base in extra innings.
Yeah.
It's just you're doing this specifically for time of the game, and you play 9 innings. You're battling for a win here, and you put a guy out there. It's like a token, and a guy gets a broken bat flare over the first baseman's head, and it's over with.
Yeah.
And it's not fair. It's not right. You didn't earn it. It's a gift.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, hey, that's Ron Cey. Again, he's got a book out. It is called Penguin Power, written with Ken Durnick, forward by Peter O'Malley. Again, Penguin Power, Dodger Blue, Hollywood Lights, and my once in a million big league journey. Ron, thank you so much again for joining us. Best of luck with the book and everything moving forward. And hopefully the Dodgers can continue to add to the legacy that you mentioned earlier.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on, Jeff. Okay, we're good. I'm gonna sign you